welcome back, hosers. I hope you're ready for some divisive content today because, well, I'm going to be dividing some plants. It's not a hot button issue. The reason I want to divide these plants is, of course, to save money. I can make this into at least 20 plants, so I'll show you how we do that. I've also got some other Delosperma in here. I don't even know what color this is going to be when it flowers. It doesn't say on the packaging, but it's probably not orange, it's probably purple, because Home Depot, they got a thing for the purple Delosperma, so it's going to be kind of a fun color contrast. But before I plant this out, I'm going to divide it as well. I've got 8 plugs here that can become easily another 20. And also, I've got some snow in summer from the same place. And this is a bunch of individual plants that can, once again, be divided. I'm going to cut this into at least quarters before I plant it out. So what you might notice all of these have in common is that they are flowering ground covers. I have a spot out in front of my house that is just full. It's absolutely full of weeds, and so I'm going to take some other aggressive species that I want and put them out there and hope that they will help control weeds. These all also happen to be drought tolerant. I am going to have to water all of these regularly for at least the first year, but once they're established, they'll save me money not only on plants but on water, which is kind of a big deal. Now before you get started doing your cuttings, you're going to want to have your soil ready just to keep things organized. You can actually leave your Delosperma cuttings out of soil for a while and let them callus over if you want. Some people advise it. I found it to be unnecessary, but I want to keep it organized. I want to know what's what, because not all of my cuttings will have flowers on them, so I've put in my little labels so I know where everything is going. You'll also want to have a cutting implement ready. I'm just going to use these cheap junk drawer scissors. Make sure you don't use the good scissors in your home if you value your life. Now as for the cutting process, it's quite simple. I'm going to find a good long stem. This one looks good, and I'm going to take in front of a node, a growth node, so it's going to branch out after I cut it off. I'm going to cut off a piece that's 2 to 3 inches long, and I want to pull off all of the leaves except for the top few, because these are going to go in the dirt. And then I'll use something to make a hole. I'm lazy, so there we go. And in this goes. Just this cutting method I've got about a 95% success rate with, so don't stress about, oh wait, I put that in the wrong spot. It's a purple one, probably. I went it in the orange spot. Anyway, don't stress about cutting your plants, because the plants you take your cuttings from are just gonna be fine, and these cuttings are almost guaranteed to survive and root. They are absolutely nuts. In fact, some people will tell you ice plants are invasive. Now here in Logan, Utah, I am at the edge of their cold tolerance, so winter's going to set them back a fair bit each year. Plus the space I'm putting them in is bounded on every side by either lawn or driveway, so not an issue here for me. If you are worried about your Delosperma becoming invasive, just keep it penned in, either in a pot or some other situation that won't allow it to spread. It looks really good draping out of a pot. It is a darn fine looking plant. There are even some annual varieties that you can eat. Now, you don't have to use your cutting implement as a dibber. I'm just lazy. You can use a proper dibber, or sometimes I like to use a pencil, and I'm just going to go until my tray is full. you do want to make sure that at least one of the growth nodes is buried in your soil. So each of these places where the leaves come out is its own growth node. And you want to make sure that you've got one or two of them in the soil, because that's where your roots are most likely to appear. Alright, so now I've got them all planted out and watered in. I have 32 new cuttings from my 9 plants here, and you'll notice you don't even really see a difference in the parent plants. You don't need a greenhouse to do this. You can work on a sunny windowsill, and you should expect about a 100% success rate if you have enough light. This is an incredibly hardy plant that will grow from cuttings for you. Now I also want to take you over here to this shelf. You might have seen it in the background and wondered what's going on. So a couple of things. I'm growing some plants from seed, like this Sweet William here. So I'm not going to get flowers from this until next year, but it's worth the wait. I'm also growing some columbine from seed right here. I've got all sorts of collected seed that I've been saving up, and now that I have a lot of yard space, it's go time. Now if you watched my short video about rescuing grocery store basil, well, this is the basil from that video, and you'll notice it is absolutely gorgeous now. I've had to pinch it off several times just to keep it a little bit under control in these little pots. It is about ready to plant out in several locations in my garden now. And yeah, instead of having that temporary basil, I have it, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I've got 6 plants. This is 2 close together. I'm going to count it as 1 plant for the cost of that live basil that I also used extensively in seasoning food. It's even cheaper to grow from seed, but we needed basil. And these plants right here are just some dead nettles that I picked up to work as ground cover under a tree. Now these also are considered by some people to be invasive because they're just a good ground cover. So make sure if you plant dead nettles that you are keeping them properly bounded, just in case. Since we're on the topic of invasiveness, let's talk about weeds. And in my mind, there isn't really a difference between a good ground cover and a weed because, well, they basically do the same thing. A weed is nature's ground cover. They're there to cover bare ground. That's why we want to use mulch whenever possible if we don't want things to get super weedy. Now in the spot that I am planting these perennials out into, the weeds that moved in are perennial weeds. I expect that I will be weeding that plot for some time to come, even though I have laid down mulch and I am putting in some plant competition to try to get that all under control. We do need to understand that we don't ever eliminate weeding in the garden. We can take steps to reduce it. And that's what we're going to be doing here, is we're just reducing weeding. And actually, we're not even going to do that very much this first year. So here we are in the section of my front garden that I am going to be transplanting all of those ground covers that I talked about into. As you can see, it's pretty heavily mulched. This is hopefully going to help suppress the weeds. You can also probably notice more street noises over here, so we'll try to keep this part short and to the point. I'm going to be planting in those plants, so you can watch me divide the snow and summer. Now before planting out, it is always a good idea to lay out your plants and make sure you are happy with how they're going to look when you're done. And so that's what I've done. Just kind of compose things a little bit. Now I'm going to pull back my mulch. I'm going to get the snow and summer done first. Alright, here's the garden with everything in place. You'll notice it doesn't look a lot different. When that happens, don't let it panic you. They will grow in. Avoid the temptation to overfill your garden. Alright, so we have had a pretty productive day. Kinda low-key, saved me some money, hopefully helped show you how you can save some money too. Thanks for joining me in my garden, and I hope that you have a fantastic time in yours.